Chapter 1. Holy sh*t, I got called a good guy again. Li Yundong mumbled in a drunken stupor, damn it, you're still trying to fool me with this kind of old crap. Li Yundong couldn't help but feel depressed and miserable when he thought of the confession he'd made this morning outside the school building. Am I that pathetic? I got called a good guy 21 times in my first year of college. Damn it, what's so great about that? I'll find someone prettier than all of you one day. The elevator door opened with a ding. Li Yundong staggered out of the elevator and arrived at the door of his rented apartment. He pulled out his keys in a drunken stupor. His parents had divorced when he was a child. His father had found a Caucasian to lead a happy life abroad. His mother, unwilling to be left alone, had also found a Caucasian and immigrated to Australia early on to lead a life of corruption. Li Yundong had been left alone in China to collect some relief money. The undisciplined Li Yundong had been undisciplined since the third year of junior high. Naturally, it was impossible for him to get into a good school. Tiannan University was the best school he could get into, but it was only a second-rate or third-rate university in China. Although it was a second-rate or third-rate university, the arts department was very famous. It had produced many stars, and the school was filled with beautiful women. Li Yundong, a virgin, was dazzled by the sight of them. Unfortunately, according to the scientific theory of attraction between the sexes, places with beautiful women were often filled with handsome men. Li Yundong wasn't ugly, but he wasn't good-looking either. Nowadays, men were either handsome or weird-looking. If you met someone with average looks, then sorry, if you didn't get called a good guy, who else would you get called a good guy? Li Yundong was also a proud and arrogant person. All he pursued were the prettiest girls in his class, department, and school. Therefore, he had been called a good guy 21 times in a year. He had been defeated again and again, and had become a laughing stock in the school. Thinking of the mocking faces around him, especially those who laughed at him like a toad trying to eat swan meat, Li Yundong gnashed his teeth in hatred. Bastard! Li Yundong stood at the door, raised his arms, and roared. The key fell to the ground with a clatter. Li Yundong squinted his eyes and bent down, only to find a fiery red vixen lying in front of his house. Its hind legs were stained with blood. Obviously, it had been injured. The vixen turned its head and licked its wounds while looking at Li Yundong pitifully. Li Yundong immediately felt sympathy for the vixen. He picked it up and asked, "Does your master not want you anymore?" How pitiful. Sigh, it's the same for me. My parents don't want me either. Everyone looks down on me. Everyone despises me. Are you the same? Don't worry, don't cry. I'll take care of you. I won't abandon you. As soon as he entered the door, he saw the living room. The living room was connected to the balcony, and there was a floor-to-ceiling window between the balcony and the living room. The window was covered with a thin screen. In the middle of the living room, there was a glass coffee table. Under the coffee table was a carpet, and on top of it was a PS2. Next to the game console was a stack of game discs, and next to the game discs was a half-empty glass of cold water. After carrying the little fox into his house, Li Yundong could no longer support his drunken body. His head tilted to one side, and he collapsed on the carpet next to the coffee table. Before long, he was snoring loudly. The little fox in his arms, which had been trembling all over at first, gradually calmed down. Its eyes shone brighter and brighter under the cold moonlight. It nuzzled Li Yundong's chin with the tip of its nose, trying to see if he was really asleep. After a few attempts, the little fox realized that Li Yundong was sleeping deeper than a dead pig. It curled up into a ball and began to emit a faint green light. The green light seeped into Li Yundong's body like countless gossamer threads, then slowly swam back into the little fox's body. The green gossamer threads turned fiery red, and when they swam back into the little fox's body, they swam back out and turned green again. The little fox did this a few times. After extracting yang qi from Li Yundong's body a few times, it was noticeably more energetic. The wounds on its claws were no longer bleeding. Suddenly, it leaped out of Li Yundong's arms, spun around in a circle, and instantly transformed into a girl in a fiery red dress. The girl was about 15 or 16 years old and about 1.65 meters tall. She had a pair of bright eyes that were extremely intelligent. Her pitch-black eyes seemed to be able to emit light, and with a slight movement, she seemed to be in a daze. After looking around the room cautiously for a while, she let out a sigh of relief and patted her chest. "That was close," she murmured to herself. "I almost died here. My Shifu worked so hard to steal the Renyuan Jindan for me. If I had died here before I could take it, wouldn't that have been a great injustice?" The little fox looked at Li Yundong from head to toe, then tilted her head and stared at the drunken boy who was hugging her. For some reason, she felt a twinge of emotion in her heart. "This guy's life is very similar to mine." The little fox sighed and rose to her feet. She wanted to leave this place. But then she thought about it again. Her enemies were after her, and she hadn't recovered from her injuries yet. What if they found out that she was going to leave this place? Well, I might as well take the Renyuan Jindan right now. The little fox took out a round golden pill that was about the size of a fingernail. She held it in her palm as if it were a priceless treasure. As soon as she took out the golden core, the whole room shone with a golden light, as if it was brightly lit. The little fox had just stolen the Jindan, but she had been hunted down by her enemies. That was why she hadn't had the chance to consume and digest the Jindan. Just as the thought crossed her mind, she caught a glimpse of two streaks of green light flashing outside the French window. Her body tensed up, and she looked out the window in horror. "Oh no, oh no. Why are they chasing me again?" The little fox's face was pale with fright. "Why are these guys so haunting me? No matter where I go, they'll still be able to track me down." The little fox's mind raced like lightning, but she could feel two extremely powerful auras rapidly approaching her. Just as she was about to panic, her eyes suddenly fell on Li Yundong, who was next to her. She suddenly thought, could it be that the power of the Jindan powder in my hand has attracted the pursuers? The little fox reacted quickly. She rushed to Li Yundong's side, pinched his cheek, and tossed the Jindan into his mouth. Then, she transformed into a little fox and hid in his arms. The little fox's plan was brilliant. She had dared to toss the Renyuan Jindan into Li Yundong's mouth because she wanted to take advantage of his yang qi. Yang qi was the purest yang qi in the world. It was the most essential part of the human body's yang energy. It was hidden in the huiyin acupoint. Only when it was seduced by the unique yin qi of a woman would it leave the acupoint. This kind of yang qi had many uses. One of them was that it could be used to conceal many auras, such as extreme yin qi, filthy qi, and even the unique spiritual qi emitted by immortal pills and divine artifacts. The little fox tossed the Renyuan Jindan into Li Yundong's mouth, but it wasn't worried that he would swallow it. First of all, the Renyuan Jindan wasn't like the Dove chocolate that melted in one's mouth. Second, Li Yundong was clearly drunk. A person in such a state wouldn't swallow anything in their mouth unless it was mixed with water. Not only could Li Yundong's yang qi conceal the immortal qi of the Renyuan Jindan, it could also conceal the little fox's yin qi. It was killing two birds with one stone. As expected, just as the little fox jumped into Li Yundong's arms, the two streaks of green light flying in from outside the window suddenly stopped. Two silhouettes appeared on the balcony. The silhouettes were graceful and graceful. Li Yundong could vaguely make out the silhouettes of two women. Strange. Why did they suddenly disappear? One of the women said in a low voice, her voice cold. Sister Ziyuan, could it be that we're chasing the wrong person? A more lively and innocent voice asked. That's impossible, the cold woman said flatly. Then I'll go in and check it out. We were chasing this house when we suddenly lost track of them, the girl with the lively voice said. At first, the little fox was so proud of its bright idea that it even raised its tail. But when it heard that the girl who was talking was going to barge in to check it out, it was so scared that it curled up into a ball. Trembling violently, it didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. Nonsense, the other woman with the cold voice said in a low voice. How can cultivators disturb the mortals? But how are we going to explain this to them when we get back? The girl with the lively voice retorted. For a moment, the two women on the balcony fell silent. The little fox was shocked and scared. Her heart was in a mess. She kept praying, Grandpa Tian, please leave quickly. Please don't come in. I'll kowtow to you. But just as she was muttering to herself, Li Yundong suddenly groaned. His mouth was dry and he wanted to swallow his saliva, but the Renyuan Jindan was still in his mouth. How could he possibly swallow it? The round Jindan rolled down his esophagus, causing a pained expression to appear on his face. Groggily, he propped himself up and reached out his hand to search for something on the coffee table next to him. Chapter 2. She wanted to stop Li Yundong, but she didn't dare to move. She didn't want to be discovered, because there were two famous cultivators outside the window. Li Yundong swallowed a few mouthfuls of water. His throat felt a lot better. A satisfied smile appeared on his face, and he fell back to sleep. The two women outside the window heard the commotion in the room. After a while, the woman with the cold voice said, "Forget it. It doesn't look like it's here. Let's go back first. That vixen can't escape us anyway." The woman with the lively voice sighed. "That's all we can do. What a bummer." With that, the two women turned into two beams of green light and left. Even though Su Chan was on the verge of going crazy, she forced herself to endure it and lay motionlessly in Li Yundong's arms. About 10 minutes later, the two beams of green light returned to the window. After a while, the woman with the cold voice sighed. "It looks like it's really not here. Let's go." The disappointment in her voice was unspeakable. Once again, the two women turned into two beams of green light and left. Only then did Little Fox jump out of Li Yundong's arms. She turned around and transformed into her human form. She pounced on Li Yundong, baring her fangs and claws. "You bastard! Pay me back for my Renyuan Jindan," she screamed hysterically. Little Fox sat on Li Yundong's body and reached for his neck with both hands. She gritted her teeth, wanting nothing more than to kill Li Yundong and cut his stomach open. But just as she was about to pinch Li Yundong, a force suddenly repelled her. She was flipped to the side. Tears welled up in Little Fox's eyes as she watched Li Yundong's body begin to glow with a rainbow light. Her heart was filled with grief and indignation. She knew that the Renyuan Jindan was beginning to dissolve in Li Yundong's body. The medicine was beginning to take effect, attacking Li Yundong's meridians and flesh. Little Fox thought back to all the hardships she had gone through to steal the Renyuan Jindan. She had thought that it would turn her from a three-tailed fox spirit into a six-tailed fox spirit. Who would have thought that she would end up benefiting this guy? Especially when she saw the strange light flowing around Li Yundong's body, the little fox's lips curled up higher and higher, tears welling up in her eyes. "I've been hiding with the elixir, but I don't even have the time to digest it." Now, he had worked so hard for such a long time, but it was all for this guy's benefit. The more Little Fox thought about it, the more wrong she felt. Finally, she burst into tears. This time, she had no choice but to throw caution to the wind. She was no longer afraid of attracting the two pursuers. She could only cry her heart out like a pear blossom in the rain. Although the little fox's cries were loud and clear, the reinforced concrete house was like a tight cage. Not a single sound could be heard, and the two terrifying pursuers did not appear again. After crying for a while, the little fox's cries became softer and sobbed non-stop. A rumbling sound came from its stomach. She was hungry. Come to think of it, he had not slept for several days while being hunted, let alone eaten. Humans are iron, and rice is steel. Monsters also need to eat and eat. The little fox glared hatefully at Li Yundong. If this guy hadn't swallowed the Renyuan Jindan, would have eaten him up right now. The little fox wiped away her tears and sniffled. Her eyes were bloodshot from crying, and she looked around the house, looking for something to eat. After a while, the little fox saw a cup of water on the coffee table. She picked it up and saw that there was not even half a cup of water left. Li Yundong had drunk it all. The little fox smashed the cup of water at Li Yundong. A gust of qi shot out of Li Yundong's body and knocked the cup away. When Su Chan saw this, she knew that this was a sign that all the medicinal power in Li Yundong's body had been absorbed. His qi was at its peak. She couldn't help but cry again. After crying for a while, the little fox could no longer stand the torment of hunger. Her nose sniffled and she began to look around the house for food. As she searched, she murmured, "Master was right. The people in this world are worse than the one before them. I just met one, and he swallowed my Jindan." It was said that dogs had good noses, but the little fox's nose was no less good. Although the fridge door was tightly shut, the little fox still managed to follow the smell to the kitchen. The little fox had grown up in the mountains and cultivated in the Fox Zen school. She had never been to the secular world before, so she only knew a little about the world. She had no idea what a fridge was. After pondering for a while, the little fox cautiously opened the fridge door. There was a flash of light, and all kinds of food appeared in the fridge. The little fox couldn't figure out why the fridge would light up when she opened the door, but she was not in the mood to think about it. She couldn't care less about her sadness. After a final sob, she began to gorge on the food. After Li Yundong swallowed the Renyuan Jindan, the medicinal power of the Jindan rampaged through his body, attacking his blood vessels and flesh. It could be said that he was reborn and reborn. This was the equivalent of an enlightened monk in a Wuxia novel using the Marrow Cleansing Sutra and the Tendon Changing Sutra to cleanse his marrow and tendons. When the little fox was full, she went back to Li Yundong and sat cross-legged in front of him. She stared at him resentfully. Li Yundong had been living alone since the second year of high school. He was lazy and undisciplined, so he was a little chubby. She quickly squatted down and picked up the book. Of course, Li Yundong wasn't aware of the changes that had just occurred to him. He assumed that Sun Li had dropped the books because she hadn't been holding them properly. He snorted inwardly. This is karma, huh? With such a shrewish personality, I really don't know who will marry you in the future. Even though he was harboring evil intentions, he still squatted down to help Sun Li pick up the books. Li Yundong picked up the 2 psychology textbooks, stood up, and handed them to Sun Li. Sun Li, on the other hand, thought that Li Yundong was the one who had purposely knocked her book out of her hand. She glared at him and said, "How can you be so uncouth?" Li Yunyang was furious. "What? I'm uncouth? If I were uncouth, I would have stepped on your books twice. Why would I help you pick them up?" Sun Li's eyebrows shot up in anger. She couldn't help but speak in her native dialect. "Go ahead and try that." Li Yundong was so angry that he was seeing stars. His chest felt like it was being suffocated. He glared at Sun Li, his face red and his neck red. Sun Li saw that his eyes were bloodshot, and the veins in them looked like they were about to explode one by one. It was a horrifying sight to behold, but she didn't budge an inch. She continued to stare back at Li Yundong. Just as the two of them were glaring at each other, a voice came from the side. "Yo, isn't this our school's confession king?" Li Yundong turned his head around and saw 2 girls standing in front of him. They were looking at him with mocking expressions. Li Yundong's face reddened. One of the girls was the beauty he had confessed to 3 days ago. She was the school belle, Zhou Qin. Zhou Qin was tall and slender. Her skin was fair, and her looks were indeed one in a million. She was dressed in a light yellow casual shirt that fluttered in the wind, making her look both fashionable and youthful. She looked at Li Yundong with indifference, as if nothing had happened 3 days ago. However, there was a hint of disdain and contempt in the depths of her eyes. The girl next to her was Ding Nan. She was the one who had mocked Li Yundong earlier. Seeing that Li Yundong wasn't saying anything, Ding Nan laughed again. "Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you know that you're famous now? Your confession video from 2 days ago was the most viewed video on the school forum." Li Yundong was shocked, angry, and embarrassed at the same time. "What did you just say? Who took that video?" Li Yundong glared at Zhou Qin. "How could you do something like that? How could you be so despicable?" Zhou Qin's expression didn't change. She just glanced at Li Yundong indifferently. She didn't even open her mouth to defend herself, as if she didn't want to argue with him. Ding Nan said, "Hey, why are you being so fierce? If you're so capable, why don't you go and yell at young Master He? I was the one who took that video. What do you want? You have the guts to confess, but you don't have the guts to let people watch it. A toad wants to eat swan meat. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Look at you. Even if you spend money, I won't be willing to accompany you. Don't disturb our Zhou Qin in the future. Do you understand?" Even a clay figurine had a temper, not to mention that after Li Yundong's marrow and tendons had been cleansed by the Renyuan Jindan, his blood and qi had reached an incredible level. When a person was full of blood and qi, it was easy for them to get angry. When a person got angry easily, they would often get into a fight over trivial matters, let alone such a humiliation. Li Yundong felt a wave of heat rush from his lower abdomen to his chest. After rolling and boiling in his chest for a while, suddenly, there was a pop sound, as if it had broken through a barrier in his chest and then rushed straight to the top of his head. Li Yundong's hair rushed straight to the top of his head with this aura, and with a whoosh, they all stood up. His eyes were almost about to split open, and the blood vessels in his eyes were about to explode. The breath in his chest was like rolling thunder, and he spurted out of his mouth. "Say that again if you have the guts." No matter how arrogant Ding Nan was, and no matter how calm Zhou Qin was, they were girls after all. Li Yundong, who had been transformed by the Jindan, was angry. His eyes were like lightning, and his momentum was like a tiger's. Even a strong man would tremble in fear, let alone a weak woman. Ding Nan and Zhou Qin were so scared that they both took a step back. There was fear in Ding Nan's eyes. Although there was also fear in Zhou Qin's eyes, there was also surprise, but soon the surprise turned into anger. Zhou Qin secretly squeezed Ding Nan's palm. Ding Nan turned to look at her, as if she had understood something. "Hey, what are you doing? This is the campus." Ding Nan shouted, Someone is going to kill me." It was the time to prepare for class in the morning, so there were many students on campus. As soon as they heard the shout, many students gathered around. Ding Nan saw that there were more people around, and her courage was boosted again. She put her hands on her hips and sneered, "Come on, aren't you very arrogant? Why are you clenching your fists so tightly? You want to hit me? Come on, hit me here. If you don't dare to hit me, you're not a man. Humph, look at you. Even if you confess to all the women in the world, no one would like you." Li Yundong was furious. He strode forward, raised his fist, and was about to punch Ding Nan. Ding Nan was so scared that she screamed and pulled Zhou Qin back. She and Zhou Qin were both very beautiful girls, so there were naturally many protectors on campus. Some of the boys who usually admired the two girls stepped forward bravely. "Hey, little bastard, what do you want?" A tall boy stood in front of Li Yundong. He was the head of the school's sports department. His name was Wu Hui, and he looked very much like Wu Qilong. Therefore, there were also infatuated girls on campus who called him Wu Qilong. Wu Hui had been fiercely pursuing the campus belle, Zhou Qin. Seeing such a good opportunity to show off, how could he not step forward bravely? But as soon as he finished speaking, Li Yundong, who was half a head away from him, grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. What am I doing? I'm going to *CK your mother. Li Yundong's furious look scared the students around him, especially when they saw how he lifted the 1.8-meter tall sports director with one hand and lifted him off the ground. *CK, Schwarzenegger, a boy gasped. Wu Hui was so angry that he couldn't breathe. His face was purple and red. He forced himself to say, let go. Li Yundong grinned, and his slightly plump and gentle face became ferocious. Okay, I'll let go. Just as Li Yundong was about to throw Wu Hui out, he heard a girl's exclamation from the crowd. Her voice was full of joy. You're here, she said. The voice was like a white spirit in an empty valley, but also like a silver bell in the wind. It was indescribably clear and pleasing to the ear. When people heard it, they subconsciously looked in the direction of the voice. Who could speak so beautifully? Li Yundong also turned his head, but his eyes suddenly widened, and the hair on his head suddenly fell down. This girl was the one who had appeared by his side after he had been drunk. This girl was wearing an ancient red dress. It was like a costume from a period drama. If ordinary girls wore it, they would only feel awkward. However, this girl had an indescribable classical charm. She was like a beauty who had walked out of a painting. Chapter 4. Never in a million years would Li Yundong have thought that the girl would chase him all the way to school. His mind started to wander. Why is she here? Did something really happen between us? Is she here to get even with me? Or... what should I do? The little fox finally found Li Yundong, the Renyuan Jindan that could move in front of her eyes. She couldn't contain the joy in her heart, but she quickly regained her composure and raised her guard. No, I can't let myself get carried away. If I give myself away and he notices that something is wrong, I'll be in deep trouble. The little fox remembered what her master had taught her back in the mountains. If you want him to ignore you, you only have to use one trick, and you'll be invincible. And that is, act pitiful. The little fox resisted the urge to rush forward and grab Li Yundong. Instead, she took small, quick steps and approached Li Yundong with a resentful look on her face. She stared at Li Yundong with a pair of big, sparkling eyes that could almost melt a bronze arhat. Li Yundong shook his head in disbelief. Wu Hui's eyes widened as he stared at the girl in front of him. I can't believe there's such a pretty girl out there. I can't believe there's such a pretty girl out there. The little fox's beauty was devastating to men. For thousands of years, no one had ever heard of a mortal being able to resist the seduction of a fox spirit. Be it King Cruel of Xia, King Zhou of Shang, or King Yu of Zhou, all of them had succumbed to fox spirits like Meishi, Daji, and Bao Si. Even the emperors of ancient times had succumbed to this, let alone a university student in an ivory tower. Wu Hui had just suffered a great loss, but he seemed to have forgotten all about it. His face was flushed red as he yelled at the little fox, "Hey, pretty girl, this guy is not a good person. He even tried to hit me just now." Li Yundong didn't even look at him. He pressed a hand on Wu Hui's head and gave him a shove. Scram! The surrounding students watched Li Yundong and the little fox as if they were watching a show. They whispered to each other, trying to guess the relationship between the two. I think Li Yundong must have done something bad to this pretty girl. I support you, brother. Look at that guilty look on his face. *CKU. Are you guys blind? Isn't this pretty girl the best of the best? Compared to her, Fan Bingbing was trash. How could she like Li Yundong? *CK, you're the one who's blind. Didn't you hear me say that Li Yundong did something bad to her? F***ck, is there any logical connection between being blind and hearing what you're saying? Don't quarrel, don't quarrel. Watch the show. These people were all talking about it, but without exception, they all guessed that this girl was here to cause trouble for Li Yundong, and that Li Yundong must have done something guilty to this beauty. It was Su Chan, who had followed him like a bullied wife. Li Yundong might have put on a facade in front of everyone, but deep down, he was actually hoping that Su Chan would follow him into the classroom. Why did you come in here? Li Yundong asked in surprise. Su Chan thought that Li Yundong was going to kick her out. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Please don't kick me out. Li Yundong's heart melted at the sight of her. Aya, no one's kicking you out. Su Chan raised her head and stared at Li Yundong. Really? Li Yundong nodded. Of course. Su Chan burst into laughter, her eyes turning into crescent moons. Chaner is so happy. Chaner? Li Yundong asked curiously. Su Chan grinned from ear to ear and pointed at the tip of her nose. My master named me Su Chan, she said. Your master? Li Yundong asked curiously. Su Chan's heart skipped a beat. Yeah, she said, feigning innocence. Thankfully, Li Yundong didn't pursue the matter. I'm Li Yundong, he said with a smile. The students in the classroom who were listening to their conversation grimaced in pain. How come they didn't even know the name of this couple when they were so close to each other? Some of the students were even more indignant. How could such a beautiful girl fall for the most useless king of confessions in our school? How am I not as good-looking as him? How am I not as good-looking as him? How am I not as talented as him? How am I not as good as his family background? What does this beautiful girl like about him? Is there still justice in this world? Is there still law in this world? Su Chan had finally achieved the first step of her goal, to stay by this guy's side. And now she was going to achieve the second step, to hold on to this guy tightly. Su Chan thought to herself, Master also said that if you want to capture a man's heart, you must first be obedient to him. But how can I be obedient to him? He didn't ask for anything, so what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to be obedient to him? Su Chan thought. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. If he didn't mention it, I would have asked him myself. Yundong, are you cold? Su Chan asked with a fawning smile. Yundong. Li Yundong stared at Su Chan with a strange look on his face. Yundong. Su Chan's voice made him feel like his bones had gone limp. Su Chan stared at Li Yundong timidly. You don't like me calling you that? Li Yundong glanced around the room, only to see the disdainful and jealous gazes of the boys around him. His manly vanity was satisfied. I do. Yundong, are you cold? Su Chan asked, beaming with joy. Li Yundong chuckled inwardly. Tiannan City is a southern city. It's already the end of May. You're asking me if I'm cold. Nope, Li Yundong answered casually. The boy sitting behind Li Yundong shuddered. He couldn't stand Su Chan's bone-chilling voice. I'm going to die from the cold, he grumbled. Chapter 5. Before Li Yundong could figure out what was going on, the little fox asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Li Yundong had only taken 2 steps out of the classroom when he heard a burst of earth-shattering laughter. The laughter made Li Yundong's cheeks burn. If there was a hole in the ground, he would have crawled right into it. Forget it, don't go to this class, don't embarrass yourself here. Li Yundong stomped his feet and dragged the little fox home during class. Along the way, Li Yundong dragged the little fox along with him. No matter how stupid the little fox was, it didn't take long for it to notice that something was wrong. When the two of them entered the house, the little fox lowered her head and looked at Li Yundong timidly. "Did I say something wrong?" she asked meekly. Li Yundong wanted to cry. "What do you think?" The little fox pouted. "I didn't say anything wrong. Cucumbers are cool and sweet. They can lower body heat." He snatched the cucumber out of Su Chan's hand and cursed loudly. "Calm the fire. Calm the F*ck down my F*king fire." Li Yundong yelled. "I'll stab you to death with a cucumber." Frightened by Li Yundong's words, Little Fox raised her head to look at him with tears welling up in her eyes. She quickly lowered her head again, tears streaming down her cheeks. Master was right. The people at the foot of the mountain are so vicious. They call for violence and murder at the drop of a hat, she thought to herself. This guy is the worst. Humph. Just wait until I trick you into reaching the foundation establishment stage. Then I'll squeeze you dry. The little fox's heart was filled with hatred, but her face was filled with a pitiful expression. Li Yundong's heart immediately softened. All right. Stop crying. You're going to look like a kitten if you keep crying." Li Yundong said something cliched. He wanted to reach out and wipe away Su Chan's tears, but the sight of her beautiful yet pitiful face made his heart skip a beat. He lifted his hand, only to stop it midair. Oh. Sensing that Li Yundong's anger had subsided, the little fox boldly raised her head. "You don't blame me?" she asked. The corner of Li Yundong's mouth twitched. He forced a smile. "Nope. Where the hell did this girl come from? How could she be so innocent? Where else would I find a girl like her these days?" It was a national treasure. Judging from her tone, she seemed to be from the mountains. Country girl. TSK, where did this country bumpkin girl come from? Li Yundong let his imagination run wild. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't help but think of something that annoyed him. Li Yundong let out a long sigh. Holding his head in his hands, he paced back and forth in the living room. Alas, how am I supposed to go to class tomorrow? If I go to class tomorrow, won't I be laughed to death? The little fox raised her head and wrinkled her nose. She waved her fist and pretended to be fierce. She thought for a moment, then put down the cucumber in her hand. I don't have anywhere to go," she said. "But you can't bully me like this." Her words aroused Li Yundong's compassion, and his eyes became soft and warm as he looked at Su Chan. He stood up, coughed dryly, and tried to find something to talk about. "Are you hungry?" Su Chan's stomach growled as soon as she finished speaking. Su Chan blushed and nodded. "Of course I'm hungry. I've been watching over you for 3 days. How could I not be hungry? I didn't even have time to eat. I just wanted to buy you something to please you. I didn't expect you to be so ungrateful. I'm so pissed off." Li Yundong laughed. "Hungry? That's fine. I'm hungry too. I'll make something to eat." Su Chan was surprised. "You know how to cook?" Li Yundong's parents had divorced when he was young. Although he was a lazy boy, he had to make ends meet to make a living. He rolled up his sleeves proudly. "Humph. I'll show you what I can do." He walked out of the bedroom and into the kitchen. When he opened the fridge, he was stunned. The fridge was in a complete mess. Almost everything that could be eaten had been swept away, even a bottle of fermented bean curd was no exception. Did I get a thief in my house? The thought flashed through Li Yundong's mind. The moment Li Yundong opened the fridge, Su Chan froze in place. She suddenly remembered that she had finished everything inside. Her cheeks flushed, and a sheepish look appeared on her face. She inched closer and closer to Li Yundong. Yes, I ate." She whimpered like a mosquito. Li Yundong took a deep breath and subconsciously wanted to say, are you a hungry ghost reincarnated? There were 2 New Orleans roast chickens, 3 bottles of coconut milk, a bag of cake, 4 bags of bread, 3 boxes of jelly, half a watermelon, and a bottle of fermented bean curd. You ate them all. Didn't you stuff yourself to death? But when he saw the pitiful look on Su Chan's face, he held himself back and sighed. Even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice, he said. There's no way I can cook without any ingredients at home, no matter how good I am at cooking. Come on, let's go get some groceries. Seeing that Li Yundong had no intention of pursuing the matter, Su Chan nodded and followed behind him. Li Yundong turned to look at her. Aren't you going to wait for me at home? He asked. Su Chan shook her head like a rattle drum. She clutched at the corner of Li Yundong's shirt as if she was afraid that Li Yundong would dump her. I'll go with you, she said pitifully. Li Yundong looked at her and said with a smile, okay, but don't look like I've done something to you. Only then did Su Chan relax. She lifted her head and smiled sweetly. The 2 of them left the house. It only took them about 7 or 8 minutes to reach the food market. Chapter 6. Her husband had cheated on her while she was pregnant, so she naturally transferred all her love for her husband to her son. She doted on him in every possible way. As a result, her son was arrogant and overbearing since he was a child. He couldn't study well, so he only knew how to fight and play with women. Li Yundong's anger grew, and the light in his eyes grew brighter and brighter. He was just about to hit Su Chan when someone pulled him from behind. Li Yundong turned around and saw Su Chan shaking her head at him. Forget it. Su Chan didn't want things to get out of hand. If she was forced to make a move, it would be too late to cry if she attracted the attention of her enemies. Li Yundong suppressed his anger and fished out 100 yuan note from his pocket. Take the money, he said coldly. Otherwise, you won't be able to sleep well at night. Lu, the son of the vegetable stall owner, stared at Su Chan, his eyes filled with greed and amazement. When he heard Li Yundong's words, he immediately flared up. He took a step forward and glared at Li Yundong. What did you just say? Brat, are you tired of living? He took a step forward and grabbed Lu's knife-wielding hand with one hand. Exerting some force, he snatched the knife from Lu's hand. Then, he used his other hand to lift Lu off the ground, then tossed him onto the vegetable counter. Then, he stabbed the knife between Lu's legs. Lu's eyes widened in shock. Lu's eyes widened in shock. With a clanging sound, the rusty steel knife was plunged into the concrete platform by Li Yundong, more than 3 inches deep. With a fierce look on his face, Li Yundong said viciously, "Who's tired of living?" Lu was so shocked by Li Yundong's words that he was rendered speechless and tongue-tied. Li Yundong snorted and took Su Chan 3 meters away from him. Lu finally snapped out of his daze and checked himself from head to toe. When he realized that he wasn't hurt, he leaped off the counter in a fit of rage. Then, he reached for the knife that Li Yundong had plunged into the cement counter. However, the knife didn't budge an inch, as if it had been rooted to the ground. Lu was so angry that he didn't even think about it. He picked up another knife from the counter and prepared to pounce on Li Yundong. The owner of the vegetable stall saw it clearly. Seeing that his son had used a knife for 100 yuan, he felt a little regretful. He quickly stepped forward and hugged his son. Lu was hugged by his mother, so he rolled off the stage. However, he was still cursing and swearing. When Li Yundong and Su Chan left the market with their groceries, Lu suddenly remembered the knife that had been stabbed into the stage. Lu looked at the knife again and again. He pulled again and again, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull the knife out. Instead, he exerted too much force, and the knife broke with a loud clang. Li Yundong finally finished cooking and placed the dishes on the table. One of them sat on the couch in the living room, while the other sat cross-legged on the carpet. Su Chan picked up her chopsticks and looked at Li Yundong, suppressing her hunger. "Can we eat now?" Li Yundong nodded with a smile. Immediately, Su Chan began to sweep the table clean of food. She looked like a hungry ghost who hadn't eaten for 800 years. Li Yundong was still smiling at her at first, but after a while, his expression changed. "Hey, you're too cruel. Leave some for me. Damn it. What am I supposed to eat if you eat it all?" After saying this, the food on the table was reduced again. Li Yundong sucked in a breath of cold air. How could this girl not be polite to him at all? Li Yundong knew that if he continued to be a gentleman, he'd be left with nothing to eat tonight. So, he didn't hold back and started a fierce battle for food. The two of them fought back and forth for food. It only took 10 minutes for the pot of rice and the table of dishes to be wiped clean. When Little Fox finished the last piece of meat, she saw that there was nothing left to eat on the table. Her face was filled with disappointment. Unsatisfied, she saw that there was still some soup on the plate, so she picked up the plate and licked it clean. When she was done, she glanced around and saw Li Yundong looking at her with a half-smile on his face. Su Chan blushed and put down the plate in embarrassment. Su Chan blushed and put down the plate sheepishly. She wiped the grease off the corner of her mouth with the back of her hand. "It's so delicious." Li Yundong was pleased with himself. Even though he wasn't full, he felt a warm feeling in his heart. He laughed. "Yummy. I'll cook for you every day from now on." "Every day?" Su Chan's eyes sparkled. She stared at Li Yundong with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Is that weird? Are you going to cook for me if I don't?" Li Yundong noticed that the corners of Su Chan's mouth were covered in grease. He pulled out a napkin and gently wiped the corner of her mouth with it. His movements were gentle and gentle. Su Chan stared at Li Yundong in a daze. "Why are you so nice to me?" she asked. Li Yundong smiled and thought to himself, "Why do you keep following me? Do you know that you are the first girl who has taken the initiative to like me since I was young? Has no one been nice to you before?" Li Yundong asked. Su Chan was silent for a moment. Then, she shook her head slowly, a desolate look on her face. Li Yundong smiled. "No one has been nice to me since I was a kid, and no one has taken care of me. That's why I've been looking for someone who can be nice to me, and I can be nice to her too." Su Chan looked up at Li Yundong. "Aren't you going to ask me where I come from? Aren't you going to ask me who I am?" Li Yundong thought for a moment. "You'll tell me when you want to," he said. Surprise and gratitude shone in Su Chan's eyes. She lowered her head and stood up. "I'm going to bed. Where should I sleep?" Li Yundong pointed at the bedroom. "You can sleep on my bed. I'll sleep outside." It was broad daylight, but the two of them were in their own rooms. One was lying on the bed, deep in thought, while the other had her head pillowed on her arm, her eyes staring up at the sky. Li Yundong had no idea what was going to happen to him now that a beautiful girl had moved into his house. Li Yundong muttered to himself. It wasn't that he didn't want to know Su Chan's background and identity, but he was more afraid that the little beauty would run away if he forced her to. This was the first time in his life that such a beautiful woman had been so intimate with him. She was so beautiful that she was like a colorful dream, and he was afraid that he would wake up from it. If this is really a beautiful dream, then I'll just keep dreaming and never wake up. Li Yundong closed his eyes, a smile playing at the corner of his lips. Who in the world would have a romantic moment when the apricot blossoms were blowing all over their heads? Which boy in this world wouldn't have a crush on love? Su Chan lay on the bed, hugging a pillow to her chest. Her body was almost curled up into a ball. "Master," she murmured, "the outside world is scary, but not all of them are bad people. This guy treats me pretty well, but I have no choice but to take his yang. Who told him to swallow my Renyuan Jindan? But why do I feel so guilty and sad every time I think about it? Su Chan rolled around on the bed in frustration. She covered her ears with a pillow and tried to hypnotize herself like an ostrich. He stole my Renyuan Jindan. He stole my Renyuan Jindan, she said. After repeating the same thing dozens of times, Su Chan slowly felt at ease. She should have squeezed the guy who stole her Renyuan Jindan dry. Chapter 7. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My dear little lady, it took me a lot of effort to muster up the courage to go to class, but you're still following me? You're going to be a laughing stock if someone sees you. Let go of me. Let go of me. I won't even have the courage to go to class today if you keep messing around. Su Chan pouted. I'll teach anyone who dares to laugh at you a lesson. Li Yundong patted Su Chan's head. Be a good girl and wait for me at home. I'll bring you something to eat after class. Huh? Your braids aren't messed up at all when you're sleeping. Su Chan tilted her head and dodged Li Yundong's hand. Then, she clutched the corner of Li Yundong's shirt tightly. No. I want to go with you. Even Su Chan didn't know why she had to stick by Li Yundong's side. Maybe it was because the only person she was familiar with in this strange secular world was this guy who had swallowed her Renyuan Jindan. The insecure Su Chan refused to let go. No matter how Li Yundong tried to persuade her, she would just shake her head. Li Yundong had no choice but to let out a long sigh. He shouted like a gangster, well, who cares what other people think of me? Pick up your own girl. Ahem, walk your own path. Leave other people without a girl. Ahem, leave other people without a path. Alright, let's go to the execution ground. On the way to the school, Li Yundong saw many pairs of students walking towards the school from the rented houses outside. The women were like little birds, and the men were like beauties. Of course, there were also the occasional boys who were like little birds. Li Yundong wanted Su Chan to hold his arm and his waist, but he was afraid that his perverted nature would scare the girl away. Along the way, Li Yundong kept looking back at Su Chan, only to see her following closely behind him. Her hand was still gently tugging at the corner of Li Yundong's shirt like a child who hadn't grown up yet. Li Yundong couldn't help but laugh at her reaction. Li Yundong and Su Chan immediately attracted a lot of attention as soon as they stepped through the school gates. The boys stared at Su Chan, their eyes filled with amazement. Occasionally, they would glance at the ordinary-looking Li Yundong, their faces filled with jealousy. Without exception, all of them cursed in their hearts. Why is a beauty like her following a guy like him? How is this guy better than me? Despicable, shameless, despicable. The girls' gazes flashed across the little fox's body as they cursed in their hearts. Little fox, coquettish fox. You look so coquettish yet you still dare to come out and show off. But most of their eyes fell on Li Yundong, and their hearts were filled with curiosity. What was so good about this man that he could attract such a beauty to accompany him? In the past, there was a saying that a man's strength could be measured by his opponents. A man's taste could be measured by his friends. After a while, the boy slowly regained consciousness. Su Chan rose to her feet and swept her gaze across the crowd. Her eyes landed on a tall boy in a long-sleeved shirt and long pants. She hurried over to him. The boy's heart raced when he saw Su Chan walking toward him. It wasn't because he was looking forward to a romantic encounter, but because he was afraid. He was afraid that this little beauty would give him a kidney deficiency like she had just done. Su Chan stopped in front of the boy and said, "Give me your hands." The boy quickly hid both his hands behind his back. "No," he said, his face filled with fear. "Then open your mouth." Su Chan said. The boy hurriedly clamped his mouth shut. He shook his head like a rattle, as if he wanted to sew his mouth shut with a needle and thread. Su Chan sneered. Do you really think I can't do anything to you just because of this? She stretched out her hand, grabbed the boy's shoulder, and pulled him around so that his back was facing her. Su Chan pressed her thumb on the boy's Mingmen acupoint, just under the spine of the second lumbar vertebrae. Does it hurt? She asked loudly. I wouldn't dare tell you even if it hurt, not to mention that it doesn't hurt. Most importantly, I don't even know if it's supposed to hurt or not. That was why he had made up his mind to keep his mouth shut. He looked like he was ready to die a martyr. But Su Chan's words made him open his mouth. You're not going to say anything, are you? Then don't blame me for making it up for you. The boy gasped. It hurts. It hurts. Su Chan thought. Do you take me for a fool? I'm pressing on your Shinshu acupoint and you say it hurts. Su Chan raged. Tell me the truth. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. The boy said again. Does it hurt or not? Su Chan said angrily. The boy looked aggrieved. It didn't hurt earlier, but it hurts now. Su Chan snorted and loosened her grip a little. How about now? The boy had resigned himself to his fate. It doesn't hurt. It's just sore, he said honestly. Su Chan pressed a few other acupoints on his body and asked him how he felt. Have you been having trouble sleeping lately? Dizziness, tinnitus, low back pain, chills in your limbs, and other symptoms? She asked. The boy's mouth fell open. How did you know? He shuddered and looked at Su Chan pleadingly. I don't have a deficiency of yin in my kidneys, do I? Su Chan snorted. Of course not. You have a deficiency of yang in your kidneys. You could say it's kidney deficiency. So it's still kidney deficiency. The crowd sighed. The yang deficiency man shouted, I don't have a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. How could it be? Kidney deficiency? Su Chan sneered. Who said you have to have too much intercourse to have a deficiency of yang in your kidneys? You must be staying up all night, flipping day and night, causing a deficiency of yang qi in your body. Look at you. Look at you, big and burly, and your face is as pale as a woman's. Young void man almost collapsed from Little Fox's scolding. The people around him once again felt like they were going to explode with atomic and hydrogen bombs. Especially when they saw that this burly man was like a sheep in front of the delicate and gentle little fox. They were all aghast. Su Chan put her hands on her hips and pointed at the yang deficiency man. From now on, you should sleep according to your normal schedule. You can take the golden kidney pill every day. Then she pointed at the yang deficiency man, who was lying on the ground with his eyes staring up at the sky. You don't have any intercourse in the future. You can follow the records in herbal rebirth. Nourish yourself with sheep lung and winter melon soup. Take your time and you'll recover naturally. Then she raised her head and looked at the soy sauce gang members. Now, does anyone still doubt that cucumbers are cool and sweet and can reduce internal heat? Step forward if you don't believe me. The crowd retreated in awe. Who would dare to say no? If this lady came up and said that she had kidney deficiency, then how could he survive in this school in the future? Su Chan put her hands on her hips. Seeing that no one dared to say anything, she snorted and said loudly, don't talk nonsense if you don't know anything. It's recorded in herbal rebirth for daily use. Cucumbers can expel heat in the chest, quench thirst, and improve water circulation. It's recorded in herbal rebirth for Lu Chuan. It can treat fever, body heat, thirst, and burns. It's recorded in herbal rebirth for Southern Yunnan. It can relieve spasms, feverish toxins, and clear thirst. It's recorded in herbal rebirth for Truth. It has a sweet smell, and can reduce internal heat and water circulation. All the medical books say that cucumbers are cool and sweet, and can relieve internal heat and reduce internal heat. You ignorant people like to treat your ignorance as entertainment. I'm ashamed of you. Su Chan scolded them loudly, leaving the students red in the face and speechless. Some of them noticed that Su Chan looked young and pretty. She looked like she was 15 or 16 years old at most. How could she know these things? Noticing the suspicion in everyone's eyes, Su Chan ran up to Li Yundong and grabbed his arm. Yundong, she said, giggling. What do you think? Am I right? Li Yundong was so stunned that he couldn't come back to his senses. When Su Chan shook his arm and winked at him, he finally snapped out of it. Ah! Ah! You're right. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Su Chan's smile was as beautiful as a flower. She looked like a little bird, completely different from her earlier scolding and putting her hands on her hips. She giggled. It's all thanks to your teaching. Oh. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone turned to look at Li Yundong suspiciously. Li Yundong knows traditional Chinese medicine. Doesn't seem like it. Maybe he's hiding his true strength? That's possible. Why else would a charming little beauty like her be with him? That's possible. Although the crowd was skeptical, they didn't go looking for trouble. Otherwise, the little fox would say that she was suffering from kidney deficiency. Wouldn't that be the same as looking for a toilet with a lantern? That would be like looking for death. What kind of man would be able to take that? Even women wouldn't be able to take it, let alone men. Su Chan saw that the crowd was still watching and whispering to each other. She straightened up from Li Yundong's arms and put her hands on her hips. What are you all still standing here for? If you're not convinced, come on up. If you're not convinced, then hurry up and leave. Or do you want me to show you some more? The crowd immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Only the Yang and Yin hypocrisy men were left, surrounded by a group of their friends. The Yinshu man was stunned for a long time. Suddenly, he jumped up and shouted hysterically, I don't want to live anymore. I want to go to Foxconn. After shouting for a while, he couldn't help but turn around and yell angrily, Hey, why didn't you guys stop me? The crowd burst into laughter. Why would we stop you? If you want to die, then go ahead. The Yinshu man roared, Even if I die, I'll drag you guys down with me. As soon as he finished speaking, someone pointed at the Yang and Yinshu men and said, One of you has Yang deficiency, while the other has Yin deficiency. If the two of you are like fish and water, you'll be able to complement each other and never lack each other. Isn't that a wonderful thing? It'll be a legend in Tiannan University. Li Yundong forced a smile that looked worse than a crying face. Yes, that's enough. Marxist-Leninist philosophy. Lu pointed at the door. Then get the hell out of here. I don't welcome students like you here. Li Yundong was tongue-tied, unable to speak for a moment. Su Chan, who was standing beside him, stepped forward to speak, but Li Yundong pulled her back. All right, I'll leave now. When Li Yundong ran out of the classroom with his head in his hands, Su Chan said angrily, Why are you afraid of him? I'll teach him a lesson for you. Tears streamed down Li Yundong's face. It's over. It'll be hard for me not to be famous now. Su Chan rolled up her sleeves and tugged at Li Yundong. Let's go. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Li Yundong pulled her back and glared at her. He was just about to explode when he remembered how gentle Su Chan had been when she was massaging him earlier. She was doing this for his own good, wasn't she? Li Yundong's anger dissipated instantly. He couldn't blame her for this. He had to blame himself. Chapter 9. Li Yundong stared at Su Chan with a broken look on his face. School. Teacher. You're so out of date, big sis. Did you just transmigrate from ancient times? Su Chan blinked her eyes. What do you mean? Li Yundong was tongue-tied, unable to speak for a long time. After a while, he sighed dejectedly and said, "Forget it, you don't understand. If I get expelled from school, I won't be able to get my parents' alimony." Did I do something wrong just now? Su Chan asked weakly. Did I cause you trouble? Li Yundong shook his head. No. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who's at fault. Li Yundong took a deep breath, then let out a long exhale. It was as if he had exhaled all the frustrations in his chest. He was a naturally optimistic person, so he quickly adjusted his mood and smiled at Su Chan. "Let me show you around my school," he said. It was past 10, and Li Yundong didn't want to go back to school right now. So, he took Su Chan for a walk on the tree-lined path around the school. Even though he couldn't hold hands with Su Chan, he could still feel the sun shining on his shoulders. Su Chan was right next to him. He could smell the faint fragrance of a virgin and the fresh scent of green leaves. Wasn't this a kind of tranquil beauty that made his heart race? Along the way, Li Yundong and Su Chan ran into quite a few students. Every time they saw them, they would turn to look at Su Chan, amazed by her pure charm. Their gazes made Li Yundong feel good. "Your school," Su Chan said, looking around curiously. "Oh, it's a school. It's huge." Li Yundong smiled. "It's just an unranked university. If it were a national key university, the campus would be even bigger." "Really?" Su Chan said enviously. "I'd love to visit it someday." Li Yundong smiled. "You seem to like crowds." Su Chan thought for a moment and said faintly, "Maybe. Maybe I stayed in the mountains for too long. Sometimes I didn't see a single person for years." Li Yundong opened his mouth to speak, but a voice came from the woods. "Zhou Qin, I really like you. I'll do anything for you." Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat. In the past, it was always me confessing to others, and they even took a video and posted it on the internet to embarrass themselves. Today, the tables have turned. Li Yundong was overjoyed. He put his index finger to his lips and said, "Sure. Let's go take a look." Su Chan was a playful girl by nature. Seeing Li Yundong's expression, she couldn't help but giggle. She put a finger to her lips and shushed him. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. The two of them squatted next to the bushes, trying to eavesdrop on the conversation. The young man was standing in the pavilion not far away from them, so they squatted next to the bushes and listened intently to the man's words. "Zhao Yujian, we really aren't meant for each other." Zhou Qin's voice was melodious, but there was a coldness that came from deep within her bones. Su Chan took the plastic bag and was about to turn around to leave when Li Yundong grabbed her arm. Hey, pay up." Su Chan stuck out her tongue and made a face at the butcher. "Oh, I forgot," she said sheepishly. Then, she handed over all the money she'd been saving to Li Yundong. The butcher was shocked. "I don't need this much money." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He took one note from Su Chan's hand and handed it to the butcher. Then, he took the change. Li Yundong shoved the change into Su Chan's other hand. "You don't need this much money to buy groceries," he said. "One note will buy you a lot of groceries. Of course, if you want to eat at a restaurant, that's a different story. One note won't be enough." Su Chan blinked. "Is the food in the restaurant good? How does it compare to yours?" Li Yundong laughed. "Hard to say. Each has its own merits, I guess. I have a few of my specialties that I haven't made yet. He smiled and chatted with the little fox as he walked toward the vegetable stall. After a few steps, Li Yundong noticed that the owner of the vegetable stall who had blackmailed him earlier was staring at him. Li Yundong wasn't a forgiving person, so he glared at the owner of the vegetable stall. The owner rolled her eyes at Li Yundong. You don't have to pay taxes for rolling your eyes, do you? She thought. Li Yundong might not have much of a future, but deep down, he was a proud and arrogant person. Thankfully, there was more than one vegetable seller in the market. Otherwise, Li Yundong wouldn't buy her vegetables even if he starved to death. After buying their groceries from another vegetable stall, the two of them carried their bags of groceries and prepared to leave. As soon as they left the market, Li Yundong saw Lu, the man he'd had a run-in with a few days ago, standing not too far away. The man was glaring at him with a dark expression. Lu glared at Li Yundong, then turned his attention to Su Chan. His eyes were filled with greed and lust. He tilted his head to the side and whispered something to a young man with dyed blonde hair and a denim suit. The young man nodded and stared at Su Chan with a lecherous smile. Yeah. Top quality. Top quality indeed. You have good taste, kid. Li Yundong's face darkened as he inched closer to Su Chan. Then, he glanced behind him. To his surprise, there were 5 people behind him, all of them holding newspapers in their hands. It looked like there was a long, hard object hidden in the newspaper. Li Yundong's heart sank. He knew that today's situation wasn't going to end well. He knew the young man with the blonde hair. His name was Xie Fei, a third-year economics student at Li Yundong University. He was a notorious hooligan who liked to fight and tease women. Li Yundong gathered all the groceries into one hand, then grabbed Su Chan's wrist with the other. Run with me, he whispered. Su Chan froze for a moment. As a cultivator, she didn't see these gangsters as a threat at all, so she didn't know what was going on. She just let out a confused, "Ah," she asked. Why are you running? Li Yundong was so angry that he almost laughed out loud. There were 7 of them. If they didn't run, why would they stay and get beaten up? Li Yundong didn't know that he had been transformed by the Renyuan Jindan, so he didn't think of himself as a ruthless person like Jet Li or Zhen Ziden. Xie Fei heard Su Chan's voice, and he burst into laughter. Hey, pretty girl, why are you running? We're not going to do anything to you. Just have a meal with us. Chapter 11. Why didn't you let me teach those guys a lesson? Su Chan grumbled. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're just a little girl. What are you talking about? Have you been watching too much Sassy Girlfriend? Li Yundong thought to himself. This isn't the way to go. I need to figure out a few self-defense moves. Li Yundong suddenly realized why he could suddenly unleash his full potential. He could run like this while carrying a person, and he could even leap up to the 4th floor. Li Yundong was amazed. Could it be that I suddenly unleashed my potential? I've heard before that the human body can unleash a tremendous amount of strength in times of crisis. Even a weak woman can lift a car. Could it be that I'm the same? No matter how Li Yundong thought about it, that was probably the case. There was no other explanation. Su Chan, on the other hand, thought that Li Yundong had swallowed a Renyuan Jindan, so the current situation was nothing to her. She even complained that Li Yundong didn't let her teach those bad guys a lesson. Su Chan puffed up her cheeks in anger for a while. Suddenly, she yelped. Ah! Money! Li Yundong looked at Su Chan and realized that she was empty-handed. She looked at him timidly. I lost the money you gave me. Li Yundong felt a pang in his heart. 1,000 grains of rice. Gone just like that? How did you lose it? Li Yundong asked, pretending that nothing had happened. I don't remember. Su Chan looked at Li Yundong timidly and tugged at his shirt. You're not mad, are you? Li Yundong had been receiving a lot of living expenses from his parents ever since he was in junior high. Plus, he wasn't a big spender, so he had saved quite a bit of money over the years. 1,000 wasn't a small amount to him, but it wasn't a lot either. And the most important thing was that he didn't earn the money himself, so of course he wouldn't cherish it very much. Li Yundong sighed and smiled. Then, he ruffled Little Fox's hair. You must have fallen off when they started chasing you, he said. Never mind. It's good that you're fine. Li Yundong sighed, then smiled and stroked Little Fox's hair. Su Chan had no concept of money. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't take it to heart, she didn't take it to heart either. Oh. At this time, the ground floor of the dormitory building was in a mess. Many students picked up their phones and took pictures of Li Yundong and Su Chan on the roof. Some heartless students felt that the scene just now was not enough, so they shouted, "Jump down! Jump down!" Li Yundong was very angry in his heart. This group of animals are all gloating and want the world to be in chaos. That's my roommate. Li Yundong's roommates said proudly. When they saw their former roommate on the roof, they pulled the pretty girls beside them and said, "That's my roommate." Some of the pretty girls didn't believe him and said with a look of disdain, "Just because you say so." By the time Li Yundong and Su Chan came down from the staircase, the dormitory building was already packed with students. Director Qian was sweating profusely. The moment Director Qian saw Li Yundong, he froze in shock. He wasn't the only one. All the other students in the dormitory were stunned as well. The noisy crowd below the dormitory building quieted down in an instant. Zhou Qin, who was standing next to Director Qian, frowned. "Director Qian, this is Li Yundong," she said softly. "You can ask him about what happened today." Director Qian snapped out of his daze. He glanced at Su Chan, who was standing next to Li Yundong, with a complicated look in his eyes. Then, he turned to Li Yundong and asked him about the incident in detail. After that, he told Li Yundong to submit a report to the Office of Academic Affairs tomorrow. Before he left, Director Qian glanced at Li Yundong one more time and shook his head. "Why is this guy's girlfriend so pretty? What's so good about him?" After Director Qian left, Li Yundong walked up to Sun Li and smiled. "Class rep, you're the one who stood up for justice." "You heard that?" Sun Li asked in surprise. "You heard it from so far away?" Li Yundong laughed. "Of course. Justice is loud and clear. It's hard for me not to hear it." The corner of Sun Li's mouth curled up slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "I'm just stating the facts. You've been leaving school early recently. Do you really not want your credits anymore? If you keep this up, you won't even be able to graduate before anyone else does anything to you." Li Yundong didn't take Sun Li's words to heart. Graduate students are everywhere these days, and college students are as common as dogs. What's the point of getting a diploma from a crappy school? A job pushing a dung cart is fought over by over 100 college students. College students these days. Humph. If it weren't for the so-called promise he made to his parents who abandoned him, he wouldn't even bother to attend this crappy school. Despite his thoughts, Li Yundong smiled at Sun Li politely. "Class rep, you really do love me. You helped me a lot today. Let me treat you to dinner." Sun Li blushed. She glanced at Zhou Qin, who was walking away with Ding Nan. "What the hell are you talking about? Who cares about you? You have such a beautiful girl by your side, and you still want to flirt with other girls?" Li Yundong looked at Su Chan awkwardly. He didn't mean to flirt with Sun Li. Even though the Sichuan little pepper had a good figure, Li Yundong's mind was on Su Chan. But he had a bad habit. Whenever he was around girls, he couldn't help but flirt with them. He would only be happy if he flirted with them until their faces turned red. If he were a handsome guy, he would probably flirt with them until the girl's face turned red. But he wasn't, so he could only let the girl roll her eyes. Li Yundong noticed that Su Chan was staring curiously at Zhou Qin, who was standing not far away from him. Her eyes were sparkling, as if she hadn't noticed him talking to Sun Li. Li Yundong let out a sigh of relief. What the hell am I doing? Why are you talking like that all of a sudden? Why are you talking to Su Chan? Sun Li caught Su Chan's gaze. If you want to thank someone, go thank Zhou Qin. She was the one who explained the whole thing to you. Otherwise. Humph. You can figure it out yourself. Li Yundong was surprised. Zhou Qin. Her. Sun Li raised an eyebrow. What else do you think? Li Yundong stared at Zhou Qin's back and nodded. That's rare. I can't believe this icy beauty would speak up for justice. Sun Li snorted. That's not very nice of you to say. She's speaking up for you, and you're talking about her behind her back. Why don't you go over and thank her? Li Yundong looked at Sun Li and smiled. Yes, class rep, you have to take the preschool education exam after you graduate. Otherwise, it would be a waste of your talent. You go thank Zhou Qin, Sun Li snapped. Why are you dragging me into this? You just confessed your love to her, and now she's turning around to help you. Humph. Who knows, maybe there's a silver lining at the end of the tunnel. Li Yundong burst into laughter. He was just about to say something flirtatious, but I never confessed my love to you, so why are you helping me? Fortunately, Li Yundong swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Sun Li rolled her eyes at Li Yundong, as if she knew what he was going to say next. Li Yundong, I need to remind you not to act so flirtatious in front of your girlfriend, she said in an annoyed tone. Then, she turned around and headed for the school building. Her long, black hair bounced in the air. Li Yundong stood there in a daze. Am I flirtatious? No way, right? He turned to look at Su Chan, only to see her staring at Zhou Qin. Her eyes were glowing, and there was a hint of fanaticism and excitement in them. Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin as well. What's wrong with this girl? Why is she behaving like a cat that smelled fish? Oh no, she's not a lesbian, is she? Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin, his eyes filled with confusion. Just then, Zhou Qin happened to be standing at the foot of the dormitory building. She turned around and looked at him. Their eyes met. Li Yundong nodded at Zhou Qin to show his gratitude. Zhou Qin's face was expressionless. She didn't react at all, but when she looked at Li Yundong, her gaze was less disdainful and more curious. Then I'll die under a peony's skirt. I'll die a romantic death. Li Yundong muttered under his breath. Just when Su Chan thought that licking the ice cream wasn't enough, she opened her mouth and took a bite out of the cone. What did you say? She asked in a muffled voice as she chewed on the cone. What did you say? Li Yundong couldn't help but feel a twinge in his balls. He squeezed his thighs together and said, nothing. Let's eat. Su Chan gave Li Yundong a strange look. What a weird guy, she muttered. Li Yundong rolled his eyes inwardly. You're even weirder than me, aren't you? Su Chan gobbled down the ice cream cone until her mouth was covered in ice cream. Li Yundong was both annoyed and amused. He handed her a napkin and said, wipe your mouth. Su Chan took the napkin, a little confused. What's wrong? Li Yundong couldn't take it anymore. He picked up the napkin, stood up, and wiped the ice cream from Su Chan's mouth. Su Chan looked at him and giggled. You look so silly right now, she said, you look so silly. Li Yundong laughed. I'm silly. You're the silly one. You're as silly as a little tabby cat. Su Chan snorted. I'm not silly. I'm a fox. I mean, the smartest one in my school. Even my master praised me. Little Fox almost blurted out her origins in a moment of carelessness. After she was done, she secretly grinned and stuck out her tongue. Li Yundong chuckled. You're smart. Fine. Let me ask you. There are 7 birds on the tree. If you shoot down one of them, how many are left? Su Chan huffed. I can't believe you're testing me with such a simple question. Are you trying to piss me off? Of course there are 6 left. Li Yundong burst into laughter. Idiot, idiot. There's not a single one left. The dead one fell off the tree. Of course the rest were scared away. Little Fox was a little dumbfounded. Her eyes widened. How could she have imagined that the people in the mortal world who had nothing better to do could come up with such a brain twister that could kill a person? She bit her lip. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. Come on, give me another one. Li Yundong thought to himself, if I tell this kind of old joke to anyone else, I'll be despised. Only a silly girl like you will be interested in it. Then let me ask you again. There are 7 birds on the tree. If I shoot down one of them with a gun, how many of them will be left? Su Chan grew even angrier. You're asking the same question twice. That's not how you look down on me. Of course there's not a single one left. Li Yundong burst into laughter. Idiot, idiot. There's still one left. The one at the bottom of the tree. Su Chan slammed the table and leaped to her feet. You scoundrel. You asked me how many are left on the tree. Li Yundong chuckled. But I said how many are left. Of course, that includes the dead bird on the ground. Su Chan's eyes widened. You can do that? Su Chan fixed her gaze on Li Yundong as she inched closer to him. Her unique body fragrance slowly assaulted his nostrils. It was as if there was a hidden fragrance floating in the air, making Li Yundong's mouth dry up. Li Yundong felt that his heart was stirring. He was looking forward to something happening and wanted to do something. Just as he was about to take action, Su Chan, who was right in front of him, opened her big, bright eyes and asked, Can I ask you a question? Li Yundong swallowed hard. His heart was beating like a drum. What do you want to ask? He stammered. Su Chan blinked. Why did that bird die of stupidity? Li Yundong. Su Chan stared at Li Yundong, who had turned around and started banging his head against the wall. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing, Li Yundong said, tears streaming down his cheeks. Li Yundong didn't have any classes that afternoon, so he stayed in the living room in a daze, thinking about everything that had happened in the past few days. Su Chan, on the other hand, kept circling around Li Yundong, trying to figure out why the bird died of stupidity. Li Yundong lay on the fluffy carpet in the living room with his hands as a pillow. He closed his eyes and thought, what happened today was really scary but not dangerous. Why did I suddenly become so good at fighting? Li Yundong thought. I can actually climb up to the 4th floor. I wouldn't even have dared to think about it in the past. Could it be that being in the presence of a beautiful woman had stimulated all of my potential? That's possible. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. No, I have to learn some martial arts. Otherwise, I'll be chased by people again. Li Yundong knew very well in his heart that it would have been fine if he didn't have the ability to protect himself. Now that he had Su Chan by his side, he would definitely be in endless trouble. If he didn't have the ability to protect himself, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. With that in mind, Li Yundong decided that going to the Taekwondo club to learn Taekwondo would be a good idea. Tiannan University had a lot of clubs, but the Taekwondo club was the only club that specialized in martial arts. Plus, because of Zhao Yujian, the school hunk, the Taekwondo club was filled with beautiful girls. Plus, Taekwondo was easy to learn and enjoyable to watch. I bet Su Chan will support me when the time comes, right? Li Yundong rolled over and got ready to sleep. Suddenly, he felt something itchy on his face, as if he had touched something hairy. Li Yundong opened his eyes and was startled. Su Chan was crouched in front of him. Her silky black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. She was hugging a pillow, and her dark eyes shone like jewels in the night. "What are you doing here?" Li Yundong asked. "Why don't you make a sound when you walk?" "Yundong, I still don't get it. Why did that bird die of stupidity?" Su Chan asked, blinking her eyes.